D, renowned economist, talking about Kenya basically breaking up a lot like the former Yugoslavia into Balkan states, if you will. And no article since the days of my good friend Mtahi Ngunyi has elicited so much reaction. In fact, my other good friend, Macharia Gaido, had to respond a couple of days later by talking about it. But I tell you, this article has elicited so much response, not just out there in the streets of many cities, but also on social media. In particular, there's this one line that David D pointed out. He said, and I quote, "If Uhuru Kenyatta is declared winner in another sham election, the country will burn." Calls for the arrest of David D were heard loud and clear across social media. I want to talk about that and also other stories making news. Okoa Kenya initiative, dead and buried? Question mark. What about IABC? Can they handle another national election? And tomorrow, Thursday, March the 31st, State of the Nation addressed by the President himself. And who better to talk about issues like this than my good friend Ken Njiru. Not only does he talk about Uungwana-ness and Ushenzi-ness, everything from throwing trash out of your car to overlapping to generally bad manners that Kenyans need to shift from. He talks about the good of this country. Kenya first, everything else second. I'd like to ask you to sit back for the next 60 minutes. That's what we're going to be asking. Are we at a crossroads in this country? Are we at a precarious position right now? We want to talk about this. Ken's Twitter handle is at Uungwana Kenya. Mine is at Koinange Jeff. The hashtag we're using is Ken's outfit, Uungwana with 2 U's. That's the hashtag tonight, Uungwana. Let's kick it off. Ken, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff.
As always.
As always.
We spoke last week. You were on the border of Kenya and Uganda?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I was over Easter. I took a trip up with the family to Busia.
Yeah.
And I didn't see death.
You didn't see death, disease, destruction, and despair?
The article started by saying that the Kenya experiment is dead.
Yes.
I didn't see death.
You didn't see that?
I didn't see a scenario where Kenyans were jumping on each other and asking you where do you come from. I saw friendliness. I saw people who were asking me, how is Kirinyaga? I saw people who were just happy that we had gone basically to visit them. And for me, I think if I may, segue into that that particular article, I think it was unfortunate. But even before I said that, I want to say 2 things before I dig into that. One, personally, I'm excited to be alive in Kenya today. I think this despite, and I'm not saying there are no problems, despite the problems, I think as a country we have many successes and we keep building on it. They may not move as fast as some people would want. They may be moving as fast as some people think they are moving fast.
Yeah.
But we are slowly inching our way into a new setup that was basically laid out by the new constitution. And whichever way you look at it, it was not going to be easy. For the first time, we have devolved units which are getting money. How they are using the money is another question, which really needs to be looked at.
Yep.
But there is no nation today. And when I say nation, if you think about the 42 counties, really, those are communities. Those are the Kenyan communities. We're about 47. We're about that number, broken up. But essentially, there is nobody who can say today they don't have a piece of the national cake. The question is how they're using the national cake. The second thing I want to say, despite what Dee wrote, I think we must put our life on the line, like one person said, for his right to say it. We are living in a country where we're in a democratic order. And there's somebody, one politician who used to say that in every marketplace there may be a madman.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's mad.
Right.
But you cannot go hammering that madman for saying whatever they want to say. And so to that extent, Dee has a right to publish whatever he published, because all you're simply saying is it's time to break apart.
Yeah.
Right? Some people may have seen it as inciting. Of itself, I don't think it's inciting, but I think it needs to be dismissed with the contempt that it deserves. One of the things that I want to point Kenyans to is the fact that a country like Somalia is one community, one religion, 8 clans, one language. It's a basket case.
Yeah.
Why is it a basket case? It's a basket case because the fundamental foundation is Ushenzi. All right, and so it doesn't matter whether we split up into 47 small counties, or we split up to 100 or even 1,000 small counties. If the base is fundamentally wrong, then what will happen is the splitting up that we do will basically, the Ushenzi that they may be referring to, will basically be devolved to the small 47 units. We know of counties, of regions in this country where dictatorship is the virtual order of the day.
Yeah.
And so can you imagine a situation like that where one of those counties now becomes a state on its own? What happens is whoever carries out those dictatorships now becomes a paramount chief, killing others. In any case, they've been dying. You know what I'm saying? And so for me, the issue that Ndi was raising, I think for me it was political mischief. Political mischief in the sense that we are still running an experiment. And I'm not saying things are right, but I think the conversations that we are having, the way we can talk to each other, the way people can even say, talk at the president and not get imprisoned or detained. I think those are things we need to build on.
Because there are countries, Ken, in Africa where if you ever even intimated something like this,
just go next door. Almost all our countries next door.
Yeah.
You are in a lot of trouble. Try it in Uganda. Try it in even Kagame's Rwanda.
Yeah.
You're in a lot of trouble. Yeah. But today, He's a free man, and I would like to caution those who are saying arrest D. No, don't arrest him. Let us have a conversation. Let us put the antithesis, if I may put it that way, of his thesis, so that we are able to dismantle this type of political mischief, because I think it is political mischief. This is not being scholarly in any sense of the word.
Yeah.
When you have a country, like I said, where now we are trying to share resources and debating whether it is going to be 45 or 50, then let's see the system through, rather than trying to foment, and that's why I'm calling it political mischief. What I may say, opinions and thinkings, which, by the way, politicians have done a good job in trying to make sure that we remain divided. I mean, there are politicians in this country, by the way, who push nothing else but tribal agendas.
Yeah.
In fact, if you remove tribalism, then they would have nothing to say.
Yeah.
All right? So to that extent, I say, for me, this is political mischief. I do not think that is the way to go. I think the way to go is to work from, is to lift up our higher order. I also want to say this, Jeff.
Yeah.
When you talk about when we talk about the type of change that we want to see in the human affairs, if I may put it that way, there are two ways to go. You can pick up a gun and tell people you must clean your streets, and if you don't bang, like for crying out loud, the people who, as they clean out Rwanda, there's no choice, you have to do it, right? You cannot do that in Kenya, because that is the system we chose. We chose a system where everybody has rights, everybody has an opinion, everybody wants to say whatever they want to say, so that today you're trying to implement a government project. You create a board, it will take you 3 years before the board starts working. But there is a way out. There is the way of the gun, where you put the gun on people's head and say, do it. But there is another way where you lift up people's sense of consciousness to becoming human beings, what I call Utu, to becoming a Uungwana as opposed to a Mushenzi. The problem with the gun on people's head is when the person holding the gun goes, the country falls apart.
Absolutely.
And that's the type of problems we're having across in Uganda and across in Rwanda, where the strong men cannot contemplate. In fact, their own people cannot contemplate them leaving, right? But in Kenya, this is a country where we've had presidents after president after president, and I'm sure after Uhuru, his term is over, if he's elected again, we'll have another president. All right? And so for me, we cannot go down this line of negativity. I think what we need to do is to take the bull by the horns and say, yes, there are problems, but we must deal with them.
Yeah, but Ken, what do you think was behind the thinking of Ndi in this article? Because he talks about Coast,
yes,
which has been agitating for secession for a long time.
Yes.
He talks about the Somalis up north.
Yes.
He talks about Nyanza, and then talks about Central.
Yes.
Why not, he says, why not those four break away and form your own little countries?
Again, by the way, the thinking that has come to be called Pwani si Kenya in the coast is not sacrilegious. I mean, the Scots the other day wanted to secede.
Yeah.
And they had a referendum.
Yes.
And they stayed. All right, so it's not anathema for somebody to say somebody wants to secede,
because life went on.
Life went on. All right, it is not should I say sacrilegious for me to say I want Central to secede. That's your business. But does Central want to secede? Has anybody else talked about seceding? Now, the fact that there's a feeling, and I must agree, it has been rubbed in, and it is constantly rubbed in by political leaders that two communities are eating, and now we are so annoyed, so let's ban the country. I want to say, one of the things that is evident, and I've just alluded to it, is the fact that today we are not living in yesterday's Kenya. Today there is more money in Northeastern than there ever was. So if somebody now stands up and talks about being marginalized, I think you're being unreasonable, and I think you're being dishonest. The question, the real question is, how are you using the money that has been sent to you? Right now, that Mombasa, by the way, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of people are talking about, the other day I saw Hassan Omar saying the projects that are being done are corrupt projects.
By his own governor?
By his own governor.
From his own party?
From his own party. So what do you want to secede to do? To go and eat some more? There's chaos across the board, and that's what we should be talking about. So for me, and note, I'm not saying there are no problems. There are problems, and that is why governments are elected. Every time a government is being elected, it comes and says, this is our agenda, and we vote for it on the basis of that agenda.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that to suggest on 2 pages in a newspaper, while it is your right, I think it's political mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken, when I read that, I looked around and I said, you know what? Do we owe our children an apology? Do we owe the next generation of Kenyans? Do we owe them an apology? Are we on the wrong track here?
I think
because it makes you second guess.
I think we do. And by the way, what disturbs me about such thinking and about people who think that the idea is to pick up arms and fight, you will still get to the table. Look at South Sudan. Whether they like it or not, they will still get to the table. So what does wisdom demand? Wisdom demands that we pray to God to give us wisdom. That is why when Solomon was asked by God, what do you want? He said, give me wisdom. Because with wisdom you're able to build. But in Kenya, when our politicians are asked, what do you want? They say money. When some scholars like this who like I'm saying, sometimes push political mischief, when they ask, what do you want? They also want money. Yeah, they also want money.
Yeah.
So for me, the question becomes, how do we, or rather, why don't we pray to God to give us wisdom so that we are able to build a platform where our children will be able to come and pick on and basically run with it? And yes, the answer to that question is actually we owe our children an apology.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
The president has been in office now 3 years, let's say, about 3 years.
Yeah.
Has he had a hard time? Has it been rough being, if you were the president today,
Yeah.
would you be having fun?
I think the president has had it very rough. Very rough from, first of all, a citizenry that is totally indisciplined. We are an indisciplined country.
We're running amok.
We are running amok. We run amok on the roads. We run amok in the schools. Girls being impregnated by teachers, head teachers doing ushenzi in schools.
Yeah,
look at the exam question. And by the way, one of the problems I have with that issue is that, yes, Matiang'i has done a good thing. He has sacked the Kenya National Examination Council Board. But let me tell you, my good friend, we have a situation in this country where parents, and it was in the paper some time back, do harambes to collect money to go and buy exam papers, and then they give the papers to their children, and then when their children pass, they lift them up and they are singing mtoto wetu because they have A's. That is what I call now ushenzi kamili.
Total ushenziness.
Total ushenzi. And Matiang'i, the board members is going to get, unless he's fishing from another pond that is not Kenya, I am not sure that they are going to do the right thing. Not because we are genetically defective, but because we have built a socio-cultural order where it is okay to steal,
Yeah.
and nobody holds you to account. I steal money, I go to a church and I build a church with it. In fact, I'm made a church elder.
Correct.
I steal money and I take it to the people, and Wanjiku elects me. Wanjiku is not innocent in this enterprise.
No. He is part of the whole
He
equation.
and she is part of this problem in this country. Jeff, today, if you go to the average constituency with no money, talk to PLO Lumumba. He wrote a book on that, sanitizing politics in this country. If you go and tell people, I have these great ideas, they will tell you, mkono mtupu, haulamwi. And I always ask myself, because I talk to politicians and politicians tell me, I use 60 million shillings to get elected. They should even be saying to buy this seat. If you use 60 million shillings, what does the voter expect you to do? You must go and recoup your money.
You are making up that money.
So,
and more.
And for me, by the way, there's a philosopher who said things don't go wrong, they start wrong. They start wrong in the way we elect people. They start wrong with what we push. They start wrong and we just continue running them wrong. When we talk about the IABC, who set up the IABC? The same characters across the board who are saying now sack them. So that every other season we are sacking people.
By the way, the same people who are saying sack IABC approved IABC before.
Not only that, apart from that, IABC, assuming that IABC is even condemned as charged. Think about the electoral processes in this country. The same party leaders who are saying IABC must go, every time there's an election in their party, people die.
Yeah.
Every time there's an election in their party, people are fighting. Every time there's an election in their party, people are saying, you have rigged. So why don't we kick the top officials of the party away? If we're going to kick this side, then we kick that side.
And which IABC do they want?
Jeff, I am clear in my mind that until Kenyans decide, you know, for the last 50 years we've had, and I have said this before, but I've come to appreciate as a change management practitioner, that for people to understand what you're saying, researchers say you must repeat it 29 times. So allow me to repeat it another time.
Carry on.
We spent the last 50 years or so negotiating this new constitution, and we put some fantastic things. Devolution, commissions, name it. We have a unique system of government, by the way. I don't think there's another country that has governments, has commissions doing what government is supposed to do. You know, take for instance the commission that oversees the police. Why do we have a commission like that? Simply because the police would do what they're supposed to do, right? So that we go creating commissions. Instead of the people who we elect doing what they're supposed to do, then they pass the buck to commissions. Then we build fat commissions which are just eating our money.
Yep.
So instead of dealing with the issue of the cultural mold that is ensuring that, or rather that is creating conditions where our elected leaders are not doing what they're supposed to do, we create commissions. But nevertheless, we created a new constitution, the Kenya Constitution of 2010, that has very good artifacts. Chapter 6, leadership and integrity. Chapter 10, national values and principles of governance, which we do not observe.
No.
Which we do not even speak about.
Disregard.
We disregard.
We threw them out the window.
We don't even care. We don't seem to care. Or at least if we care, we don't leave them out. Right? Now, for me, what we have been dealing with and what we have in that constitution is what I call hardware. The hardware is relatively well thought out, despite the fact that what we created was a wildebeest of a constitution.
And you know the wildebeest is the strangest animal.
Cut and paste. Cut and I remember in Bomas we were given constitutions, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, United States. Somebody read and picked this piece, picked that piece, and we create a wildebeest of a constitution, but it's ours. But let me tell you, Jeff, you cannot transform even an organization like this, even a lovely hotel like this, and I'm talking now as a change management practitioner.
Yes.
If you do not address the people side of the change and their methods and their tools and their processes, which start at A and at Z, so that by the time you're talking about 2, 3, 4 years, then everybody in this country is aligned. Everybody understands what national values are. Everybody is working hard. Kipkemboi is not the exception. Kipkemboi becomes the norm. Because as a doctor, I am doing it as Kipkemboi does it. As a teacher, I am doing it as Kipkemboi does it. As a politician, I'm doing it as Kipkemboi does it. And that is how a culture of a nation rises. Let me tell you something.
Go on.
And I want the economists to challenge me on this one. There is no nation that has been built on a distribution model Let's eat without talking how we produce.
Yeah.
I'm yet to hear politicians challenging in those political podiums, those that collapse and those that don't collapse. I have not had them challenging people to work, to think harder, to be innovative, to be creative. I've not had them doing a resource audit and asking how much wealth did we create this year. What I've had is, what did I eat? And I remember J.F. Kennedy telling the American people, ask not what your country has done for you, but what you have done for your country.
Correct.
And that is why America is great. But in Kenya, our leaders are telling their people, ask what you have eaten and what is in your stomach.
Correct.
So that for them, that is the paradigm.
And what you can eat more.
And what you can eat more. And I want to put it to the viewers of this program that nations are built by people, entrepreneurs. And I've said that before. Go and Google a documentary called The Men Who Made America. They are the ones who they wired electricity. They discovered oil. They brought it to the surface. They distilled it. They built petrol stations. They manufactured steels. They built railroads. By the way, the oil pipeline that we're talking about,
yes,
whether it's going to go through Tanzania or Uganda, was built by individuals. And thus we had the Carnegies. We had the JP Morgans, who are so wealthy at some point in time. They even played the role of the reserve, the Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
They had to be broken down, and that's why the antitrust law started coming in. So what am I saying? I am saying that Kenyans are not genetically defective.
But there is a problem.
There is a problem.
Like the movie I keep quoting about Houston, we have a problem.
We have a problem.
And that problem we need to tackle soon, Ken, because we're going to reach a point of no return. Think about it, Ken. Think about it. Let's take a break, come back, because there's so much that's going right.
Yes.
But at the same time,
there's so much that's going wrong. And I'm excited to be in the space.
It could be worse.
We must not despair. Let me tell you, I'm a man, but I'm told by ladies, giving birth is terribly painful. They scream a lot.
Correct.
We empathize.
Yes.
Let me tell you, there is no birth without pain.
There is no birth without
pain.
Pain. And in the gym they say no pain, no gain.
No gain. But we don't want to work as Kenyans. We want to see it. Give us. 30,
Wacha tuibe.
90%. Wacha tuibe.
Wacha tuibe.
I remember there was a time on TV. Citizens, one of the constituents in Nairobi,
yes,
ran to Kibera saying, tupe mwizi wetu. Tupe mwizi wetu. Set them free. In fact, I remembered, it reminded me of the story of Barabbas and Jesus.
Right, last week it was Easter.
I think if the way we are going, if Jesus came again, we'll say, give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. What are you? Yes.
Ken Njiru, when he shows up, you know we're talking sense on the bench. And I tell you, we're sparing nothing. Nobody. We're talking about the future of this great nation after all. And if not us, then who? If not now, then when? Keep tweeting at Uungwana Kenya, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag Uungwana with a double U, 2 U's in Uungwana. That's the hashtag. Ken Njiru and myself will be back because we are live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski right here on Jeff Koinange Live. Take a break. Be back in a moment.